5,000 years ago, the Hmong lived in peace with their king Qi Yu, one of the three mythical leaders of China. King Qi Yu, known as Ziyu, was the head of 9 large tribes and 81 smaller tribes. Based on documents found, the Hmong people originated from China and later fled from the persecution to Laos, Vietnam, and Thailand after the defeat of King Qi Yu. The Hmong people were innovative and very adaptive in each new environment they found themselves in. They knew they needed to provide for their families, and they did so by agricultural work and farming. They were the first to cultivate wet rice lands and gunpowder after the ruling of King Qi Yu. Not only were the Hmong people innovative and adaptive, but they were also consisted of many diverse tribes within the Hmong people themselves. So, who are the Hmong people really? There are 5 different Hmong identities, including Hmong, Mien, Hamu, Hamao, and Kaohsiung, all of whom have their own dialect, traditions, and clothing. An amazing fact is that within the Bandao designs in Jialu, such as Tisai, one can still find the hidden language and history if they listened and looked closely. However, since the migration because of a long war-related history, many of the original traditions, culture, and clothing have changed. In February 1973, the Vention Agreement was signed. This was a ceasefire agreement between the Laos and the United States. Laos declared Hmong as an enemy for helping the U.S. In 1975, the Hmong fled away from the communist Vietnamese overtaking their liberty during the Secret War of Vietnam. With the help of the US CIA and their leader General Ring Pao, they fought against the communists to protect their homelands. After losing the war, about 50,000 Hmong civilians had been killed or wounded. Some men stayed behind and remained Yao Fa, and the others scattered hoping to find a new homeland that is safe. About 1,000 to 3,000 Hmong were airlifted to Thailand. However, thousands of Hmong were left behind in Laos. Many of the Hmong left behind traveled to Thailand on foot because they were fearful of the Lao communists. While walking to Thailand, many died from diseases and starvation. The Hmong had to eat whatever they could find, such as banana trees, bamboo, leaves from trees, and other edible things. The Hmong never wanted to encounter any Pet Thai Lao soldiers. Pet Thai Lao soldiers are communist Lao soldiers that are associated with North Vietnam. Pet Thai Lao soldiers shot and killed any Hmong people they saw and tried to stop any Hmong from leaving Laos. To avoid being caught by their baby's cry while fleeing to Thailand, some parents gave their babies opium so they wouldn't make noise and they would go to sleep. Some babies overdosed on opium and died. One of the most unforgettable memories while fleeing was the hazardous Mekong River. From border to border of Laos and Thailand, the Mekong River flows about 530 miles long and has a drop-off of 14,800 feet. The Mekong River was also heavily guarded by the communist soldiers. Crossing the Mekong River was tough and exhausting. Many Hmong civilians drowned from trying to cross the river, and some died after getting shot by the Pad Thai Lao soldiers. Once they have reached Thailand, they were checked before entering the refugee camps, and some were sent back to Laos. Most of the Hmong people were placed in the refugee camp called Ban Vi Nai. In 1986, Ban Vi Nai had about 42,828 refugees. Today, the Hmong live all over the world in France, China, Thailand, Laos, Vietnam, Burma, and the US. There are about 300,000 Hmong in the US and over 12 million worldwide. A few main reasons why the Hmong came to Minnesota was the organizations such as Lutheran Social Services, Catholic Charities, the International Institute of Minnesota, and Church World Services paving a path in supporting them. Also, Minnesota's health benefits such as clinical practices were able to help Hmong families to adjust to the American life. Today, the Twin City is known as the Hmong capital of the world. The Center of Hmong Studies is a museum located at Concordia University of Minnesota. Not only is it a museum, but it can also be a place to study and hold small group meetings. The center is filled with over 2,000 Hmong artifacts, pictures, and files regarding information about the Hmong people. The building was Concordia's former president Dr. Ho's campus home until he gave it up in 2002 to create the very first Center for Hmong Studies in the world. Dr. Host is a longtime Hmong supporter and is one of the main reasons why Concordia is so diverse and welcoming today. He is also a good friend of the director for the center, Lee Pao-hyung.
Both my parents were born in Laos, and then due to the Secret War, which stemmed from the Vietnam War, they immigrated and became refugees in Thailand. And then both of them applied to come to the United States, and my parents came in the early 80s, and I was born here.
So my family and I have migrated to the US in the year of 2004 due to poverty and due to free education that the US has provided.
Parents are from Laos. Grandparents are also from Laos. My mom's side, we come from our grandpa or great grandpa's name. Like his name is called Tsata Lee, and like that's how we know of our Hmong Lee people. That's on our side, and so like that's where like we come down. All my Lee cousins and all my like even my grandma on my dad's side, she's a Lee too. We all branch off from that our great grandpa.
I was actually born here. My parents, they met in Thailand, but they were born in Laos and fled to Thailand after the Secret War as refugees, and that's where they met. They had two of my siblings there, and they immigrated to the US. When they came here, they only had about $200 on them to start their new lives.
For me, I was born in Thailand and I was raised there until like I was 6 or 5, and I moved to the United States in 2004, so I have like a perspective of what's back then and now. It was the environment change was really show that, you know, we're in the United States and like we're in a place where they call so like a place where there's rich people and stuff like that. So, and I thought it was really interesting because like back in Thailand there was like the house is different compared to our house now, and just the road, you know, you used to have dirt road, now it's concrete road and stone road and stuff like that, and like just the field was just like an open field. We don't have like park and stuff like that. It's just like a big open field, and like pretty much the forest, you know, is our playground.
I was born in Wisconsin, but my parents came from Laos. For my dad's side, he came from the Singkwan area in Laos, and then my parents fled the war, the Secret War, to Thailand in Ban Vinai.
The one thing for sure, you know, I'm aware of the contributions that Hmong have made in the war that they participated in, how they've been displaced and sometimes often not feeling like there was a home because of things that happened from China, then moving into Laos, and oftentimes have felt, where can we call home? So I know they have come here as refugees and immigrants. So I feel like there are some parallels with the Hmong community and the African American community where people were stripped of oftentimes their language, their culture, their heritage. And I know that the Hmong people are very proud people of their history and the contributions that they made in China, in Laos, and here in America.
I think Hmong culture is very, very, very important. I think if people, you know, you have heard me say this before, if you lose your culture, you lose, if you lose your language, you lose your culture. If you lose your culture, you lose your history. Okay, and if you lose your history, you lose your self-identity, right? Because the reason I say that is if you don't understand the language, you don't know the language, then you can't jump into some of the ceremonial chants and some of the cultural chants, because within those ceremonial chants are clues to our history, and so once you lose that, then you lose your history, and if you lose your history, you don't know who you are, right? And one day they're going to ask you, you know, are you Hmong? You say, no, I'm not Hmong, or I'm Chinese, I'm Japanese. And why? If you're Hmong, tell me something about your people, your culture, your history. Talk about your language. If you can't come up with that, then you don't know who you are, right? So I think it is important for a minority group like us, people that don't have a country, right? And that we call it Hmong country, because wherever we live, that's our country. And so it's important to keep our identity intact. Otherwise, we will be assimilated, and one day we may not exist.
Both my parents are still very traditional, and my mom is a shaman, and so growing up, we still stuck to a lot of the traditional practices, the shamanistic practices. I think when I was younger, I didn't realize how important it would be. However, now that I'm an adult and I'm married, it's really important. I never necessarily considered myself to be a traditional person. However, I feel that it's important. I don't really know how to explain it other than I feel that there is like a spiritual belief and calling that this is what I should follow. It could be influenced from my upbringing, it could be influenced by maybe my parents, my husband, my in-laws. However, I just feel like this is the way that I would want my future to progress. I'm even seeing that we are losing our language, we're losing some of our cultural practices, or if we're not necessarily losing it, we're unsure of why things are the way that they are, or how did a certain item come to be. And so we have to start with ourselves first. We have to find that inquiry in us to be like, okay, how did we come here? Why do we do the things that we do? Maybe what are some practices that started that certain way? And even if we are gonna assimilate into American culture, how can we still keep our traditions alive? And what traditions, what pieces of culture do we want to keep? And what we want to change and why we want to change it.
History to me is really important, like to know where you come from and to know like your history and your people, and to understand like the sacrifices that you've been through, and to understand like your parents' sacrifices, and to know that you came here through like blood, sweat, and tears. Well, I'm sure like there's some families that came here and it was easy for them, but still like even before that, like, you know, our ancestors have been like running and like we don't really have a home.
I think personally it's very important, but then like passing it on to the next generation is going to be hard because our environment has changed, and just our method kind of changed too, because, you know, usually when it's usually we have to wait like a certain amount of day to be able to spend money, and like we have to wear nice clothes. We can't do we can't wash our clothes and stuff like that. And so, but now we kind of adapted to like our environment. We don't really wait a long time before we can spend money, and like
I think Hmong culture is very important to me today, my past and my future, because it is a part of who I am. I grew up with it. I grew up with the language, the food, the culture, and I want to continue doing so. With this, I also hope to spread it to my children by keeping the language and making sure that they know the basics of it, and making sure to preserve my Hmong language and culture.
I think Hmong culture is pretty important to me because it makes me who I am. It makes me find something that I can identify myself to, and makes me unique. Because like, if you have something that you can connect to, it makes you different from other people too, because people don't have that connection with you, or that similarity with you. And even though there's a lot of Hmong people, there's also like we still have different things about ourselves, our personalities about ourselves, that makes us stand out.
The Hmong students have been here since the 90s, so over 20 years, because I think those of you who are current students might feel it's been just maybe in the last 5-10 years. But it goes back to when my husband worked here at Concordia University, and because I can remember him bringing some Hmong students to our home, and I was learning some of the cultural foods and things of this sort. At that time, I didn't know much about Hmong students. I think any group from any background, culture, class, any uniqueness brings richness to Concordia. So I think having Hmong students here really enhances the opportunity for students to expand their knowledge, their growth. I think it provides students an opportunity to contribute more to their communities and to the country and to the world.
I think that one of the things that I enjoy doing here is interacting with students. You know, I mean, often I say I'm here for the students. The other thing is, in a selfish way, I'm learning as well. I'm learning about the history, my history, the Hmong history. So each time I get a box of documents donated from a retired CIA individual, I look through it and it's just like a kid walking into a candy store. You know, and I think that's why I'm still here. It's because of that constant learning, and also using that material to frame my teaching. So I'm the only faculty teaching in the Hmong Studies program. I wish that Concordia we would have the resources to hire more faculty, but at this point, I'm teaching all the courses in the Hmong Studies minor. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed discovering new facts, new things, interviewing people, and getting new information and incorporating that into my class. And I think that's what kept me challenged. And so that's probably the part about building things that kept me here, because I'm always building my curriculum, building my syllabus. You know, for other faculty, it's like they teach the same thing and it's the same material all the time. But this area, I'm discovering new things all the time. You know, and I'm always building the curriculum, building the syllabus, and building the exhibit here as well. So.
I've been with Concordia for 4 years now, and when I first interviewed for the job, I knew of Concordia. When I was in high school, I applied to attend, and Concordia has, I would say, a pretty good reputation in the Hmong community just because of the work that Concordia has done, the Center for Hmong Studies, so on and so forth. And of course, being an institution that's located in the Twin Cities area in St. Paul, which has a very, very large Hmong population. The good reputation piece brought me here. Also, getting to work at a school that has a really high diversity percentage was a good thing, which I was impressed by. And so that's why I took the job. And then a reason why I'm currently attending the grad program is I want to grow in the higher education field, and my experience with higher ed has all been through Concordia, and specifically with my experience in being the advisor, well, co-advisor and now advisor for CHUSA. I feel that Concordia makes progress with addressing the needs of our students from ethnically diverse backgrounds, and I also feel that diversity is a good thing because in college, students are finding themselves, and students are taking that time not just to learn about maybe their major or what they want to minor in, but they're also learning more about other students, which can enlighten their experience, which they can then apply to their professional careers.
The reason why I actually came to Concordia when I was younger, like I actually had a tour here when I was in high school, and I guess I just kind of had this feeling that I was supposed to be here, and I think the main reason was because it had the Center for Hmong Studies, and I think that's also because I was also like wanting to learn more about who I was. So like because the center was here, like that was really the reason why I came. I think that if the center wasn't here, I would have never even thought about coming to Concordia. So like when I was applying for colleges and stuff, like I was applying to other colleges too, but then when I heard like that the tuition went down, I was like, dang, I'm really gonna go there. And then I came, and like I loved it.
I chose to come to Concordia because of the Hmong Studies minor. I knew I wanted to go to human resources management, but I also wanted to minor in something that I am passionate about, something that I want to learn more about rather than just electives that I'm required to take.
I did like some college research, and I've known that Concordia actually offer like a Hmong program, a Hmong minor program. So that's why I have decided to come here. Well, my history class, Hmong history class, and I basically like use like all the textbooks, like most of the textbooks in this Hmong study program to actually help me write my papers. And Lee Power actually told me that most, like at that time I was doing my history, and he actually told me that the clothings that are being wear by the women actually tell the history of Hmong histories. Like for example, he told me that the skirts of the ladies or of the women contains 3 stripes, which actually means the 3 rivers that Hmong people have crossed, and it actually have like those kind of like triangular shape, which represent the mountains that the Hmong have crossed.
I had a conversation with President Holtz in 1987. We were talking about starting something, and he said, you know, if we were to start something in Concordia, what should it look like? This is in 1987. I said, just imagine the Smithsonian Museum, where if you want to know about a people, a culture, a history of a people, you walk into the facility, the place, and you learn everything about that. And so that conversation kind of died down, and then I left Concordia to run the Urban Coalition as the president and CEO, and then went to work with the city of Minneapolis as the director of housing policy and development. And so I was part of a lot of discussion groups among scholars. And so people were talking about, you know, we need a place to collect things, to preserve things, to teach things, and to align ourselves with. And so I called President Holtz up and I said, President Holtz, remember 1997 we talked about this? I think the time is right. You know, then the benefactor called me up, and he flew up and we went to have dinner. And he says, you know, Lee Pao, you got to run this thing. You got to come and run this thing. And so I think that's, you know, those conversations. And President Ho said, you know, this is the first Center for Hmong Studies, and it'd be great to have a Hmong person to run this place, right? To run the center. And more importantly, you were at Concordia University. You worked at Concordia before. You know the academic culture. You've been in the community knows you, you have credibility within the community, credibility within the world of academia. And so to start something like this, if you hire pure academicians, they won't be able to cross over to the community. And so we need that blend when we're starting something like this out, you know. So I told him, well, okay, if that's the case. But I think the other thing was, another key is that Concordia University is a Christian university, and we also, you know, preferably it would be great to have a Christian to be here as well. So my family's been Christian since the 60s, and so everything kind of aligned. You know, I worked at Concordia before, came up with the idea, let's start a center, have a conversation with them in 1997 and then in 2004.
I feel very strongly. I could say that I was a part of the discussion at the president's table when the idea of having the Center for Hmong Studies here. I could remember a benefactor wanting to help support that. And so from the beginning, we knew what the benefits and the contributions that having a center here could provide to not only the campus, but to the community and really to the world. And when we think about the conferences that are sponsored through here, the knowledge that's shared, the experiences that are gained, the exposure. But the main thing is learning more about the Hmong culture, the education of it, learning about traditions. There's so much we can learn from each other, and most times people aren't really open and ready to hear that. Sometimes I think people are learning or thinking about what they might lose instead of what they might gain. So there's a lot to gain from having the center here. And that's been proven with all of the artifacts, the exhibits. There's so much to learn that we can all grow from in terms of what this culture has to offer.
The center is a piece that collects a lot of data and information, and from anywhere from like clothing to politics to one of the few Hmong Studies programs in the whole world. And so it's almost like a little bit of a monument that says Hmong people should care about their history, their culture, and all that, and all the pieces that come along with that. So it's like if we do not care for our own history, our own culture, then who else would? And if there are people out there who seek to learn more about us, or seek to learn more, to know a little bit more, this would be a really great resource for them.
It's a gathering place for students, right? They feel that they're welcome on this campus, and that somebody actually cares about them, that there is a center for them, right? I remember one of the students who graduated now, he's an attorney, and he said, when I was going to school here at Concordia, I didn't know about the center. When I learned about the center, I came here and ate my lunch here. Prior to that, I was eating lunch in my car. Because he said, the food that I eat, it's different from the food that other people eat. And so he was ashamed of sitting in the cafeteria eating rice with Hmong sausages or with chicken wings and all that stuff, chicken legs. And so he ate in his car. And when he found out, he discovered about the center, he actually came here, and he graduated with a minor in Hmong Studies as well. But I think it's something like that, simple as that. Or just to see, every morning having a group of students coming down, studying here and hanging out here. I think it's really key.
I think that maybe students don't realize the full potential and impact that the center can have on students' learning and students' self-identity, and or other students that may not identify as Hmong. Like, I don't know if they know the full resources that the center can offer for them. I really wish that all students and all community members realizes what a resource the center can be for them.
I think it is very important because it's the only one in the world, right? And we also have, even though it's just a building, but I think it's the community viewed as of value, right? And when the community is viewed as of value, then you have to continue to improve, right? And continue to collect and continue to build on it. So I think it is important for the community, for the future of the Hmong people, because I always tell the community that what we do here is not for this generation, but for many generations down the line. If we don't collect the artifacts, we don't collect the historical documents, then our history are just basically folktales, right? But we're going to be able to say, no, this is not. The Hmong did participate in Laos, and here's the proof, right? The Hmong came from China, and here's the proof, right? And so if you don't have these things, then it's just stories. And stories become myth, right? It's just myth, it's not real. And so the Center for Hmong Studies, center like this, makes us relevant and real. Makes us relevant and real, and that we really do exist, and we do exist in history. Even though other people try to erase that part of the history, we're saying, hey, we have documented proof.
I think I used it a lot for really good things. I think if you I actually asked Li Pao for volunteer opportunities here. So I was when I was a sophomore in college, I came to do a little bit of data, I don't know, just files and some sort of data entry for him. So there's opportunities to volunteer if you want to. I think it's always here, it always needs help if you want to have volunteer opportunities, and especially with Hmong studies, study abroad trips, you can really, if you really want to go somewhere to learn more about Hmong people, I think it's something that Li Pao will probably be open to.
I am aware of the Center for Hmong Studies. Not my first couple days of welcome weekend, but my first official day. I came to sit in the Hmong Center with my friend, and we were just hanging out here. And then throughout my 4 years, I used it to like help with our club meetings, CHUSA, Concordia Hmong University Studio Association. So we have more board meetings, or club meetings, and events. We use the things we have here, and then also just like promote it to other people in the community, like our student community here. Like, oh, you should come to the Hmong Center and see what we have here. Kind of talk about my own culture, or when giving out tours, we talk about the Hmong Center or the Center for Hmong Studies a little bit, and talk about like, oh, you can come here to learn about the Hmong culture. We have clothing, instruments, books in here. So just promoting it to the community, and it just for myself, using it for like homework, classes, looking at the books downstairs in the library for like projects.
I was not aware of the Center for Hmong Studies before coming here. I learned about it soon after from a friend, and I thought it was really awesome that there was a museum for Hmong artifacts. And after I came to look at all the artifacts and the clothing and everything, I just thought it was super amazing, and I was proud to be Hmong, just because this is also the first Center for Hmong Studies in the whole world. Yes, I am aware of the Hmong Studies minor. I am minoring in Hmong Studies. When I first came to Concordia, I did not know that there was a minor in Hmong Studies, but after learning about it, I just couldn't miss the opportunity to learn more about myself and about the Hmong people. After coming here to Concordia and taking the classes, I've learned a lot more about my culture. And as a child, I would often ask my mom about why we did things the way we did, and she would have no answer. She would just say, because it's Hmong culture. But after taking the minor, it's more interesting to actually dive deeper into the Hmong culture and understand the reasons why we do things.
I came here not knowing like, oh, you know, what kind of weapon they use and like what are they wearing and stuff like that. And I came here just like a lot of hot clothes that's hanging around here, and like weapon that was used during the Secret War. And Li Pao is really an amazing teacher here too, professor here. He's able to help me understand like, oh, you know, which route they take. He has a map of like, oh, you know, they took this route and took this route and stuff like that. So it was really the resource is really good here.
A place like this, a place like the Dr. Chapman Diversity Center, I think it's also very important. It creates a sense of community, right? If you don't have a place like this, institutions like this, then people are just here to get the degree, then they leave. But we want to create experiences for them, and once they have the experience, they have the relationship, then they feel like Concordia is their Concordia. It's not just a place, it's not just a tool for us to go get our degree and then never be heard of again. So it's kind of great to continue to maintain, to have connections with our alum that graduated many months ago. I feel so old. when I see some of my students out there, it's like, oh yeah, I graduated 5 years ago. It's like, what? I thought you were just here last year. So I think it is important. It builds community, right? It builds community in a campus like this, and where we are the minority, we're not the majority, and it's good to be available for students when they have issues. They can come and talk about. They have questions about their, the professions, or their future plans. They can come and talk to somebody like me.
Oftentimes people forget how important difference is. We tend to look at difference as something not good or not acceptable, not normal. And I think diversity is intended to remind us how unique, special, acceptable, and wonderful each and every person is, including their backgrounds, their beliefs, their values. And I just think we become a much better person, a much better campus, a much better community, and a much better world where we love, respect, accept, and learn more about each other.
We have to care about preserving our culture. We have to care about preserving our language, or just
just to continue to remember that everything should be based on love. Even though people say, I love you, but. So how do we love unconditionally, and how do we love in a way that doesn't make us feel like we're giving up our values or our practices or our principles, but loving enough to listen, be open, relate, not feel like you have to always be right, or that things have to always go your way. But how do we just mesh and blend more together by listening to each other, learning from each other, appreciating each other, and loving each other in ways that we haven't done before. So don't give up, hang in there, be yourself, continue to grow and expand, and continue to do great things.
I want to say that find yourself, don't lose yourself, and this could just be going back into your history or your parents' history, finding where they came from, how much hardship they had to go through to come to the U.S. And make sure that you preserve your language, your culture, and the things that you do, and make sure you spread it to your children or future peers.
I know more about the Hmong community than before, like when I was younger, because I didn't grow up with the Hmong community as much. So it's really nice to know, like, a part of the Hmong community, like know something about the Hmong history, and it makes me feel like I belong and I can connect with Hmong people now, and I think that's what benefits me. And it also just makes me know, like, makes me feel like, you know, I tried hard to actually understand and learn the culture, because I know that a lot of people look at me or think of me like, oh, he's not Hmong enough. So I think that for me, this is a way to show me, you know, you can speak Hmong, but I know history, I know this, I know that, and you know this and you know that, so we can come together and work together instead of just oh, you don't know this, you don't know that, you're not Hmong enough.
For me, when I was in Hmong, I was very passionate in Hmong. From all the history classes that I got to take, I actually chose Hmong because I was really interested in the histories that Hmong have provided, the history that the Hmong have gone through. For example, Chi Yu, I was very interested in him, I really want to know him. And second thought, when Li Pao, he actually gave us, when he was telling folk tales in my history class, I was really amazed and got really motivated.
I hope Concordia sees the innovations that we've created here at Concordia. I think oftentimes, all the people that were part of, with the exception of Dr. Chapman, most of the people that were here when we started the center are no longer here. And I hope the institutional memory is slowly fading away. And it's very hard, I think, for other people who move up the rank and now in positions of influence to see the value of Concordia. But, as I mentioned, the value of the Center for Hmong Studies. And as I mentioned to one of the higher-ups one day, and I said, just imagine Concordia without the Center for Hmong Studies. And what would that do, right? And so it's because of the center here that people feel comfortable that, well, Concordia is actually a friendly place for us, a Hmong-friendly place, because they have the Center for Hmong Studies too. They have Li Pao there,